Hello, future medical professionals. Welcome to an exciting journey through the human body. Today, we are diving into Class 11 Biology, focusing on the chapter Excretory Products and their elimination. Specifically, we'll explore the disorders that can affect our crucial excretory system. From basic understanding to advanced competitive insights, we'll cover everything you need to know. Get ready to challenge yourself across 4 levels of learning. Let's kick things off with the easy level, where we'll grasp the fundamental concepts of common kidney disorders. Think of it as building your base for a strong understanding. Our kidneys are vital, but sometimes things go wrong. One common issue is kidney stones, also known as renal calculi. These are hard deposits of minerals and salts that form inside your kidneys. They often occur due to dehydration, certain diets, medical conditions, or genetics, leading to crystals, like calcium oxalate, to build up. The symptoms can be quite severe, including intense pain in your back or side, painful urination, blood in the urine, and even nausea or vomiting. For example, not drinking enough water can make your urine too concentrated, increasing the risk of these crystals forming and growing into painful stones. Next, we have kidney failure or renal failure. This is a serious condition where your kidneys lose their ability to remove waste products and maintain fluid balance effectively. It can happen suddenly, which is called acute failure, often due to injuries, infections, or certain medications. Or, it can develop gradually over time, known as chronic failure, often caused by long-term diseases like diabetes or high blood pressure. Symptoms include swelling in your legs and feet, reduced urine output, constant fatigue, nausea, and shortness of breath. And finally, a severe complication of kidney failure is uremia. This occurs when urea and other nitrogenous waste products accumulate in the blood because the kidneys can no longer filter them out, leading to symptoms like extreme fatigue, loss of appetite, muscle cramps, and even confusion. Time to test your basic understanding. Here are 3 easy practice questions. Read each one carefully and try to recall the definitions and key points we just discussed. Take a moment to think about the answers before moving on. Great job on the easy level. Now, let's level up to the medium difficulty. Here, we'll delve a bit deeper into the causes, symptoms, and initial management of these disorders. At the medium level, we'll explore uremia in more detail. It's not just a simple buildup of waste, it's a complex clinical syndrome where severe azotemia, or an excess of nitrogenous waste, causes widespread systemic symptoms. This happens when the glomerular filtration rate, or GFR, drops significantly, indicating the kidneys are largely failing to filter blood. Symptoms can be quite diverse, including uremic frost, which are urea crystals on the skin, inflammation of the heart lining called pericarditis, brain dysfunction leading to confusion or seizures, and common issues like nausea, vomiting, and a metallic taste in the mouth. Understanding these systemic effects highlights the critical role of healthy kidneys. Next, let's differentiate between acute and chronic renal failure. Acute renal failure, now often called acute kidney injury, is a sudden and severe loss of kidney function. It's often reversible if treated quickly and can be caused by severe dehydration, significant blood loss, certain medications, or blockages in urine flow. In contrast, chronic renal failure, or chronic kidney disease, is a gradual and progressive decline in kidney function over months or years, and it's usually irreversible. The most common culprits here are long-term conditions like uncontrolled diabetes mellitus and high blood pressure, along with diseases like glomerulonephritis. Understanding this distinction is crucial for diagnosis and treatment planning. We'll also look deeper into renal calculi, or kidney stones, focusing on their formation and common types. Stones form when urine becomes oversaturated with crystal-forming substances like calcium, oxalate, and uric acid, especially if the urine lacks natural inhibitors that prevent these crystals from clumping together. The most common are calcium stones, often calcium oxalate or phosphate, linked to diet and metabolic issues. Struvite stones, less common, form in response to specific urinary tract infections caused by bacteria that produce ammonia. Uric acid stones are associated with high uric acid levels, often seen in conditions like gout. For management, we'll briefly introduce dialysis, a procedure to filter waste from blood when kidneys fail, and kidney transplantation, which is the surgical replacement of a diseased kidney with a healthy donor kidney, often the best long-term solution for end-stage renal disease. Alright, you've absorbed some more detailed information. Now, it's time to test your knowledge with 5 medium-level practice questions. These questions require a slightly deeper understanding and might involve comparing concepts. Take your time, think critically, and choose the best answer. Excellent work progressing through the medium level. Prepare to engage your analytical skills as we move into the hard level, exploring complex mechanisms and advanced treatments. At the hard level, we delve into the detailed pathophysiology of uremia. It's far more than just urea buildup. It's a complex syndrome caused by the retention of hundreds of uremic toxins that healthy kidneys would normally clear. These include substances like parathyroid hormone, beta-2 microglobulin, and advanced glycation end products. These toxins have widespread effects, impacting nearly every organ system. They contribute to cardiovascular diseases like hypertension and atherosclerosis, neurological issues such as encephalopathy and peripheral neuropathy, hematological problems including anemia and platelet dysfunction, and various gastrointestinal and endocrine disturbances. Understanding this systemic impact underscores the profound role of kidney function. Next, let's explore glomerulonephritis, the inflammation of the kidney's crucial filtering units, the glomeruli. When these tiny filters are damaged, they can't properly filter blood, leading to protein and red blood cells leaking into the urine and waste products accumulating in the blood. Glomerulonephritis can be primary, originating in the kidney itself, or secondary, as part of a broader systemic disease like lupus or diabetes. It's often immune-mediated, where the body's own immune system mistakenly attacks the glomeruli. Symptoms include blood and protein in the urine, swelling, high blood pressure, and reduced urine output. There are various types, such as acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis and IgA nephropathy, each with distinct characteristics and prognosis. We'll also deepen our understanding of renal calculi by examining the various types and their specific management strategies. For instance, calcium oxalate or phosphate stones, the most common, are managed with increased fluid intake, dietary adjustments like reducing sodium and animal protein, and sometimes medications like thiazide diuretics. Uric acid stones, often linked to gout and acidic urine, require hydration, urine alkalinization, and drugs like allopurinol. Struvite stones, caused by specific bacterial infections, often grow large and require antibiotics and surgical removal. Rare cystine stones, due to a genetic disorder, need high fluid intake and urine alkalinization. Finally, we'll compare hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. Hemodialysis filters blood outside the body using a machine, typically 3 times a week. Peritoneal dialysis uses the patient's own abdominal lining as a filter, often done at home. And for end-stage disease, kidney transplantation remains the ultimate solution, though it requires lifelong immunosuppression to prevent organ rejection. You've tackled some challenging concepts. Now, it's time to apply that knowledge to 7 hard-level practice questions. These questions will require analytical thinking, comparison of different disorders, and understanding of treatment modalities. Give your best effort. Congratulations on mastering the hard level. Now, brace yourselves for the hardest level, the ultimate challenge designed for competitive exam readiness. Here, we'll explore advanced topics, intricate mechanisms, and cutting-edge insights. At the hardest level, we dive into advanced glomerulonephritis, focusing on its complex classification and pathogenesis. This group of diseases often involves immune complex deposition, a type 3 hypersensitivity reaction seen in conditions like post-streptococcal GN or antibody-mediated injury to the glomerular basement membrane, a type 2 hypersensitivity, as in Goodpasture's syndrome. We'll look at specific types like IgA nephropathy, the most common primary GN worldwide, characterized by IgA immune complex deposits, often presenting with recurrent blood in the urine after infections. We'll also examine focal segmental glomulosclerosis, a leading cause of nephrotic syndrome, and membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, often linked to chronic infections or autoimmune diseases. Understanding these distinctions is crucial for precise diagnosis and targeted treatment strategies. Next, we'll explore polycystic kidney disease, or PKD, from a detailed genetic perspective. This is a genetic disorder where numerous cysts grow in the kidneys, ultimately leading to kidney enlargement and loss of function. These cysts can also appear in other organs. The most common form is autosomal dominant PKD, or ADPT, caused by mutations in the PKD1 or PKD2 genes, which encode polycystin 1 and polycystin 2. These proteins are vital for cell-cell interactions and mechanisation in renal tubules. Their malfunction leads to progressive cyst growth and kidney failure, typically in adulthood. A rarer, more severe form is autosomal recessive PKD, or ARPT, often presenting in infancy, caused by mutations in the PKHD1 gene, which encodes fibrocystin, and is frequently associated with severe liver fibrosis. Understanding the genetic basis is key to future therapeutic interventions. Let's delve into the engineering and intricate mechanisms behind dialysis. In hemodialysis, blood from the patient flows through hollow fibers within a dialyzer. Simultaneously, a specialized solution called dialysate flows in the opposite direction on the outside of these fibers. Waste solutes like urea and creatinine move from the blood, where they are highly concentrated, into the dialysate, following their concentration gradients through diffusion. Excess water is removed from the blood through ultrafiltration, driven by hydrostatic pressure differences across the semipermeable membrane. This membrane is precisely engineered with specific pore sizes to allow small molecules to pass while retaining larger, essential proteins and blood cells. In peritoneal dialysis, the patient's own peritoneal membrane, a natural, highly vascularized lining in the abdomen, acts as the filter. Dialysate is introduced into the peritoneal cavity, and waste products diffuse from the blood in the peritoneal capillaries into this dialysate. Ultrafiltration, in this case, is primarily driven by osmotic gradients created by high dextrose concentrations within the dialysate. After a specific dwell time, allowing sufficient exchange, the spent dialysate, now rich in waste products, is drained from the cavity. Both methods effectively replace the kidney's filtration function but utilize different anatomical and engineering principles. Finally, we tackle immunosuppression in kidney transplantation, a delicate balancing act. Immunosuppressive drugs are critical to prevent the recipient's immune system from rejecting the new kidney. They work by targeting various components of the immune system, primarily inhibiting T-cell activation and proliferation. Common classes include calcineurin inhibitors, anti-proliferative agents, corticosteroids, and mTOR inhibitors. The challenge lies in achieving sufficient suppression to prevent rejection without oversuppressing the immune system, which would lead to increased risks of opportunistic infections and certain cancers. Long-term use of these drugs also carries specific toxicities, such as nephrotoxicity, diabetes, hypertension, and bone disease. We'll also briefly touch upon diabetic nephropathy, the leading cause of end-stage renal disease, where chronic high blood sugar damages kidney vessels, and explore emerging therapies like artificial kidneys, regenerative medicine using stem cells, and gene therapy for genetic kidney diseases. These innovations hold immense promise for the future of nephrology. You've absorbed a tremendous amount of high-level information. Now, It's time to truly challenge your understanding with the first 5 hardest level practice questions. These questions are designed to test your analytical skills, your ability to connect multiple concepts, and your readiness for competitive exams. Read each question carefully, analyze the options, and choose the most accurate answer. Let's continue to push your boundaries. Here are the next 5 hardest level practice questions. These will further test your in-depth knowledge, your understanding of complex mechanisms, and your ability to differentiate between subtle concepts. Take your time, think critically, and apply all the advanced insights you've gained. Good luck! And that brings us to the end of our comprehensive session on excretory disorders. I hope this deep dive, from easy definitions to advanced competitive insights, has significantly boosted your understanding. Remember, consistent practice and in-depth study are key to mastering NEET biology. For more such engaging and detailed educational content, make sure to visit synapse.omaps.in. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for regular updates and more amazing learning journeys. Keep studying hard, and best of luck with your NEET preparations.